welcome to another edition of The Public Interest. My name is David Granger, and today we continue our examination of the interface between domestic policy and foreign policy, and we will speak about the defense of Guyana. Who will defend Guyana? You know, Guyanese first learned from the foreign media that their country was about to join the 40-year-old regional security system, the RSS. This was the third time that they had learned from foreign media about their country's foreign policy. You remember that the announcement that we would no longer recognize Polisario came from the Moroccan government, not the Guyana government. When we heard about the decision to establish a commercial office with Taiwan, it came from an embassy in Georgetown and the Taiwan government itself. Now we hear from the Barbados government first that Guyana is to join the regional security system. When I was at school, I had a school teacher who used to tell me, first is, especially when he's about to administer some correction, the first is accident, the second is coincidence, but the third is habit. And this is the third time we're learning from a foreign country, a foreign government, about Guyana's major foreign policy plans. And we must ask ourselves the question, was this background to the RSS, the Regional Security System, researched? Was the membership of the RSS recommended by CARICOM? Did it go before the National Assembly? We don't know these things. All we know is that, yes, the government of Barbados made an announcement, and later on, I noticed it was published in the local media. Caribbean security cooperation is important, but we must understand the context within which the regional security system was first established. The Caribbean is a vast area of over 2,800 square kilometers of sea space. It was completely colonized. No part of it, no key, no bay, no coast was left without the European and American imprint. It used to be called the cockpit of Europe. Not a cockpit like you find in an airplane, but a cockpit where, cockerels actually sometimes fight to the death. So in the Caribbean, you still have American, Dutch, English, and French owning real estate, and they still protect their possessions. And those four countries, America, the Netherlands, England, and France, are all members of the North American Alliance, and they're involved in matters which are now taking place in the European continent. So they have interest to protect, and they have power to project. We in Guyana used to be a British colony, and most of the Anglophone Caribbean, all of the Anglophone Caribbean, in fact, used to be part of what we used to be called the BWI. But when we became independent, we did not have any major military preparation for independence. There used to be something called the West India Regiment, and Jamaica got one battalion, Trinidad got another battalion. They had two battalions. So you know what Guyana got? Nothing. Everything was divided between Jamaica and Trinidad. So we had to scratch and scramble from the start, and some of the smaller countries were worse off. Many of these mini-states are incapable of effective defense against insurrection, defense against invasion, defense against secession, defense against territorial and maritime claims. And you'll be surprised to know how many maritime boundaries are poorly defined and not yet agreed. So we are in for the long haul as far as territorial security is concerned, as far as defense is concerned. And quite frankly, Belize and Guyana came off the worst in the British West Indies colonies because the territorial claims in the case of Belize by Guatemala and the case of Guyana by Venezuela, were very hostile. Now, there's good reason for small states in the Caribbean to feel insecure. There's good reason for Caribbean leaders to feel insecure. You will recall that Grenada's prime minister was overthrown by a canoe full of rebels in 1979 called the New Jewel Movement. He was just expelled. Trinidad and Tobago's prime minister was nearly assassinated in 1990. And last year, the president of Haiti, a CARICOM state, was actually assassinated. So Caribbean leaders have good reason to be afraid. We also recall that Anguilla seceded. Anguilla used to be part of a tripartite state called St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, and it actually seceded in 1967. And of course, now you have St. Kitts and Nevis. Anguilla's gone on its own. And of course, you remember too that Venezuela supported the attempted secession of the Rupununi from Guyana in 1969. Suriname itself, now CARICOM state, tried to seize the entire New River district from Guyana in 1969. And again in 2000, a peaceful, unarmed petroleum exploration platform owned by the Canadian company CGX was actually expelled by the Suriname Navy from Guyana's EEZ. And we had to go to the International Court to have a judgment, which turned out to be in our favor. But when the matter came before CARICOM, it could not be resolved. CARICOM did not have the means to resolve an attack by one CARICOM state against another CARICOM state, by Suriname against Guyana. So there was no defense. There was no RSS present. We were on our own. And at this time, we have to ask ourselves, who will protect us if we were to face further hostilities, and we are not free from hostilities as yet. And you remember, of course, in 1983, next year will be the 40th anniversary, full of anniversaries. This is the 40th anniversary year of the RSS. And next year will be the 40th anniversary of the United States invasion of Grenada. My friends, United States is one of the most, if not the most powerful military state in the world. And Grenada is one of the smallest, weakest military states. America descended on Grenada in 1983. It's almost like what you're seeing now in Europe, that, a big country, powerful country invades a small country. And we need to work towards making the Caribbean a zone of peace. No more invasions, no more secessions, no more intrusions, no more seizures of boats in the maritime zone. Let us look at the RSS, this regional security system. RSS is a creature of the Cold War. It was not something that the Caribbean heads sat around a table and assessed the security situation and decided to form this RSS. It is something that came out of the strategic planning of the powers in the Caribbean, the same powers that used to be imperial powers. Those are the people, those are the states, those are the entities which decide on these matters. So the RSS is not a homegrown product to protect the interests of small Caribbean states. This is something that came out of the Cold War. Not surprisingly, therefore, the next year, when the United States invaded Grenada, the RSS, basically the RSS is made up of some what we call TSU, Tactical Service Units, and a few defense forces in the Eastern Caribbean. It is not an army. But after the United States invaded Grenada in 1983, they assembled a group of Eastern Caribbean states um, to go along with them. But I don't think they were involved in hostilities. They might have been involved in protecting prisoners and that type of thing. And of course, the invasion killed 26 Cuban workers on the Point Saline airport. But that was an invasion, and next year we celebrate or observe the 40th anniversary of the Grenada invasion, of the American invasion of Grenada. But in uh, in 1993, 1994, the United States decided to, well, in fact, the United Nations, to be correct, decided that the situation in Haiti, not for the last time, was unstable. And the United States put together something called a Caribbean battalion to support its occupation of Haiti. Later on, back in 2004, they went in again to expel President Aristide. And this time, the Anglophone Caribbean states felt that the motivation for intervention was not in the best interests of Haiti or the Caribbean countries, and we didn't participate. And the big powers were able to put together Brazil, Chile, and other countries, but in the occupation of Haiti, the English-speaking Caribbean countries were not involved, and they stood away because they felt we needed to give diplomacy a chance. And because of the forceful action in Haiti, I think that was a contributory factor to the state of Haiti today. Uh, After that, as you know, President Obama came down to the Caribbean, and he launched the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. And there is a web of United States sponsored security institutions that we have become familiar with over the last 40 years. So there's the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, then there's the periodic Caribbean Nations Security Conference, CANSEC. All of these are coordinated by Southcom. Many people go on training courses. And, every year there's an exercise called Exercise Trade Winds. And they come to different countries in the Caribbean to practice their skills. And the United States has engaged in shipwright agreements with individual countries in the Caribbean. All in all, these activities and agreements were sponsored by the United States. They're not between Caribbean countries; they're between United States and Caribbean countries. If you follow the trend of thought that prevails in the Caribbean at present. So there's little bilateral. It's really a top-down type of relationship. Now we come back to the RSS's regional security system. You would be interested to know, my friends, that the real home, the core of the RSS is Barbados, now the Republic of Barbados. Barbados is the home of the headquarters of the RSS, Treaty on Security Assistance. Barbados Chief of Staff, the chief of what is called the Barbados Defense Force, he is the regional security coordinator. Barbados contributes almost half of the central fund of the RSS. Barbados provides the operational center of the RSS. Barbados provides the central liaison office of the RSS. Barbados provides the Coast Guard maintenance facilities for the RSS. Barbados is the headquarters of the Regional Security System Air Wing. Barbados coordinates all of the Coast Guard patrols. And of course, as you know, from time to time, the RSS has gone out to suppress prison mutiny in one country or the other. Marijuana eradication. This is the sort of thing our TSU would do in Guyana. Um, and the RSS does this in the Eastern Caribbean. So they are always very frequently involved in law enforcement operations. My friends, when you hear this, you can see that this is a system which is strongly influenced by Barbados. Um, it's the home, it's the Barbados Chief of Staff, it's the funding, it's the operations center, it's the central liaison office, it's the Coast Guard maintenance, it's Air Wing headquarters. um, did Guyana really agree to join the regional security system as it is presently constituted? Um, does CARICOM know? Did CARICOM advise? But the regional head of government, who is responsible for security, is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Not the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is the lead head of government for security. Did this agreement pass by him? I don't know these things. It wasn't part of the release, and I don't know if there are going to be any further discussions. But it seems to me that this very much is a done deal because, as I said, we have to read in the paper to find out, which head of government or which foreign country is going to make an announcement affecting Guyana's security. We now look at the importance or the significance of this decision, which has been published in the newspaper about Caribbean security. You remember 15 years ago, there was the Cricket World Cup. And I feel that under the guidance of the then lead head of government on Caribbean security, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, at that time, we made significant progress. And many people look back with nostalgia at what was achieved for Cricket World Cup. Well, nothing much gets done, when Surinamese naval craft expel a petroleum platform from Guyana's waters, or when the Venezuelans, threaten, petroleum boats in Guyana's EEZ. But cricket is different. And I think the Caribbean states, really did its utmost to ensure that Cricket World Cup was successful. I would say that the Caribbean states at that time were able to create a comprehensive security regime for Cricket World Cup. In fact, the Council of Ministers who have responsibilities for national security and law enforcement might have been created by, at that time, there's no council, CONSLE, however it's pronounced, but that is a product of the present century. It wasn't there from the start. And as you know, security has become one of the pillars. There were 4 pillars before of the Caribbean community. Security is now one of the 4 pillars. So we now have a council of ministers which responsible for national security and law enforcement. At the time of the Cricket World Cup, we established something called the Joint Regional Communication Center, which allowed intercommunication among the participating member states of the Caribbean. A good move. You cannot plan military operations without communication. Then you had the operational planning and coordinating staff, compacts. So the operations were centrally planned. This is not something that is dominated or dictated by a single country, as happens, in other places. This meant that all Anglophone Caribbean countries, participating states, were involved in operational planning and coordination. Uh, in addition to that, you had the implementation agency for crime and security impacts, so that again there was a high level of coordination among the states of CARICOM. Then there was the Security Policy and Advisory Committee, CPAC, so that from a policy point of view, we had the best quality advice coming to the executive heads of these forces and services. Then you had the Regional Intelligence Fusion Center, the RIFC, the Regional Investigative Management System, RIMS, the Regional Crime and Security Strategy Coordinating Unit, RCSS, and the Treaty of Security Assistance. Now, it seems very bureaucratic, but the point is that 15 years ago, Caribbean countries planning for Cricket World Cup were able to put their heads together, go to the national assemblies, pass legislation, and produce a comprehensive security regime that satisfied the interests of all of the participating states. Some of it was what they call sunset legislation. That is to say that once Caribbean Cricket World Cup passed, the legislation would cease to be operational, would cease to be effective. It would just fade away. Some have survived. The point I'm trying to make, my friends, is that the RSS does not have the capability of the regime that the Caribbean states created 15 years ago for Cricket World Cup. So we do not need to invent the wheel all over again, and we do not need to join an organization which does not have the capability to protect Guyana's defense. I'm serious about Guyana's defense. Guyana has serious defense problems. When you have a country like Suriname expelling your petroleum vessels from the EEZ, when we have Venezuela harassing petroleum vessels in our EEZ, we need to take it seriously. This is not something that we could ignore. This is not something for the TSU. This is something for real defense forces. And right now, this month, March 2022, we are going before the International Court, and we need to make sure that our borders are secure. We need to make sure that our hinterland communities are secure. We need to know that Mabaroom and Whitewater and Baramita and Kaikan and Arau are all secure from Venezuelan syndicatos and attacks. We need to know that the folks in the Venamu and the Coyuni and the Amakura are protected. And our defense is not the same as the defense needs of Antigua and Barbuda or Grenada or St. Kitts Nevis. One size does not fit all, and RSS does not fit every requirement. We are different, and Guyana is very much different it is not an island state, and its threats, its risks are very different from those that exist in the Caribbean. So we need a security system which fits Guyana's needs. And we needn't, at this stage, I mean, I'm not saying that RSS is not suitable. It is suitable for the purposes for which it has been created. But we need to participate in the creation of a defense regime which fits and satisfies the needs of Guyana itself. And right now, I do not feel that we have had that type of in-depth research, and we don't have the recommendations. My friends, let me point out that for 40 years since 1982, the Bahamas, Belize, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad never joined the RSS. And in 40 hours, Guyana suddenly decided to join the RSS. Why did these states, Bahamas, Belize, Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad, why did they refuse to join the RSS since 1982? There are very good reasons, and we must find out what those reasons are. Because we were taken by surprise that, within a very short period, over 3 or 4 days, we suddenly learned that Guyana is a member of the RSS, which had refused to join for 40 years. What we need now is some sort of foreign affairs council so that our foreign affairs planners or diplomats get the best advice and we avoid future blunders. This is not, I'm not attacking anyone, but what I'm saying is that we need to think deeply about these decisions. It's about Morocco, it's about Taiwan, and now it's about Barbados. And we feel that the RSS is good. As I said, it's good for what it's being created to do. It's good for it might have served the purposes, um, for the Eastern Caribbean over the last 40 years or so. But right now, we need something in Guyana which is more than a tactical service unit. We need something more than the enforcement of law going up the rivers, marijuana eradication, quelling prison riots. Um, and we must ask ourselves whether the RSS, as presently constituted, has these capabilities. I don't think so. I'm asking that we consider going back to the drawing board or maybe creating something based on the experiences we had 15 years ago with the Cricket World Cup and see whether the effort that was put in by our ministers, by CARICOM, by our experts at that time have any relevance and could be resuscitated and made to serve a comprehensive security regime. I'm concerned about Belize and its relations with Venezuela. In fact, the British actually had a squadron of fighters in Belize for one period of time. They never had that in Guyana. We were shipwrecked. We were left on our own. And as soon as the British pulled out in 1966, the Venezuelans pounced on us, and they still, are in possession of Ankoko. That's the danger Guyana faces. The other countries of the Anglophone Caribbean don't face those dangers. And we need to create a regime not only to deter attacks, but also to resolve conflicts. So if a country in the Caribbean attacks a member country, we have a means of deterrence, but we also have a means of resolution. That is to say, we can take the matter to some form of tribunal and have the matter resolved. But when CARICOM attempted to intervene or to, I don't want to call it adjudicate, in the matter between Suriname and Guyana in 2000, it was powerless. So we need to create something with power, which could, demand that its member states conform to certain international norms and protect the member states from attack. We need to create in the Caribbean a zone of peace so that our children and grandchildren do not live in fear of attack. We have enough problems with earthquakes and hurricanes. We have enough problems with rising sea level, environmental threats. We do not want problems of violence. We do not want problems of hostilities from other countries, particularly other member states. We need something better than the RSS. We need something that can defend Guyana. Right now, I do not feel confident that the regional security system is capable of defending Guyana and Guyana's interests. It's in our interest, national interest, to create an institution among our Caribbean colleagues which will protect the country, protect all countries of the Caribbean for future generations, this and future generations. Thank you, and may God bless you.